Gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Ross, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. This is an extremely important issue for our country and for the future of our country. But let me be clear before I ask my question. Donald Trump's contempt for the judiciary is not new. He has fought civil cases against him because of real estate deals and people he hasn't paid. He's fought victims that he has sexually assaulted and he has been convicted of sexually assaulting. His disrespect for the judiciary is based on his disrespect for anybody who doesn't let him do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And he is very dangerous right now because he is the President of the United States of America. And we are seeing him treat the people of the United States of America the same way he treated those poor contractors he never paid, the same way he treated women who he sexually assaulted.
Welcome back, freedom fighters, to Right View Nation, where we tell it like it is, stand up for the Constitution, and never back down from a fight for liberty. Today we're breaking down one of the most outrageous displays of partisan drama I've seen in a long time on the House floor. Congresswoman Deborah Ross, Democrat from North Carolina, absolutely goes off on President Donald J. Trump. But not with facts, not with reason. No, with pure emotional vitriol, and frankly, a deep misunderstanding of what our Constitution actually stands for. You hear that? This isn't policy debate. This is character assassination 101. Ross starts off by painting Trump as a tyrant, claiming he has contempt for the judiciary and disrespects anyone who doesn't let him do whatever he wants. Oh, really? The same Trump who appointed 3 Supreme Court justices who are now making rulings based on the Constitution, not political pressure? She claims he disrespects the judiciary. But let's unpack that.
He is doing the same thing to the United States of America. So, Professor Shaw, on February 9th, Donald Trump told reporters that no judge, quote, should be allowed to rule against his administration's unconstitutional changes to how our government operates. And the next day, Vice President J.D. Vance posted on X, judges aren't allowed to control the executive branch's legitimate power. Just to be clear, does the president decide what issues judges get to rule on under our Constitution?
No, really, since, Marbury versus Madison, 1803, judges and the Supreme Court, right, sitting at the top of the federal judiciary, have had the final word on the meaning of the Constitution and the laws and the consistency of laws or executive action with the Constitution. So in our system, it has been the courts and not the president who have had the final word.
Thank you for that. So I am going to quote Fourth Circuit Judge Michael Ludig, who I can testify, no liberal. I had a case in front of him. He was a tough customer in the Fourth Circuit. He was appointed by George H.W. Bush, and he recently noted in an op-ed for the New York Times, quote, "A country without an independent judiciary is not one in which any of us should want to live, except perhaps Mr. Trump while he resides in the White House." Trump has railed against the federal judiciary for years, as I said in my opening, and especially now that his administration is losing in courts nationwide. So, Professor Shaw, what could Congress do to stand up against Trump's attacks on the judiciary to ensure that it remains functioning, independent, and co-equal in our system of governance?
Well, I certainly don't think resolutions of impeachment, for no other reason than rulings that members disagree with, are constructive from the perspective of preserving judicial independence. I mean, one thing that I would imagine that bipartisan support could easily rally behind is judicial security, right? We are in a moment in which we have read about the U.S. Marshal Service concern about heightened levels of threats to federal judges. When there was an actual threat against Justice Kavanaugh in 2022 on a bipartisan basis, security for Supreme Court justices was increased. But I'm not sure that we've seen anything to that effect now. So shoring up judicial independence at a moment where, frankly, there are not a lot of other functioning checks on the executive branch is, to my mind, critically important. And maybe that's one way this body could devote itself to doing that.
And then going back to the impeachment issue that my colleague from Vermont discussed, if Trump is successful in getting judges impeached in the House, I don't think he would be successful with the final decision in the Senate. Is he allowed to demand that a judicial nominee promise not to rule against him or his administration under his appointment power?
There's nothing in the Constitution that speaks to that one way or another, but it is certainly a very established tradition, bipartisan and longstanding, that presidents do not secure commitments, in particular with respect to particular rulings from nominees they are considering. Certainly the Senate, in its advice and consent role, could seek to enforce that longstanding principle by asking nominees if they have been, asked or have given any kinds of assurances, but it would be wildly inconsistent with our practice for a president to seek such assurance from a nominee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Does the ranking member have a unanimous consent request?
What Trump is actually doing, and what we have been calling for, is an end to the activist judge culture. The kind of culture where unelected judges legislate from the bench, twisting the Constitution to push radical leftist agendas. What we need is not blind submission to judges. We need judges who stick to the law. She acts like Trump's just mad about losing in court. But the deeper issue here is that we've got federal courts overstepping their bounds, blocking executive orders, and interfering in immigration, national security, and economic policies, issues where the president should have authority. And then she takes a jab at J.D. Vance for pointing out something obvious, that the executive branch has legitimate powers under Article 2. That doesn't mean judges can't rule on legality, but it sure as heck doesn't mean they get to run the executive branch. We're a constitutional republic, not a judicial oligarchy. Ah, yes, she brings up Judge Michael Luttig, a conservative, she claims, trying to validate her attack. Look, we're not going to pretend there aren't establishment Republicans out there who've cozied up to the swamp. Just because someone was appointed by a Republican doesn't make them infallible. What matters is principle. And the principle is this: Trump never tried to destroy the judiciary. He challenged it. That's part of the checks and balances system the left only pretends to care about. Ross then floats this idea that Trump wants to impeach judges just because he disagrees with them. Totally misleading. Conservatives aren't out here screaming impeach every time we lose a ruling. But when judges go rogue, blatantly ignore the Constitution, or allow political bias to influence their rulings, yeah, accountability should be on the table. The judiciary is not a sacred cow. They're not above scrutiny. No branch of government is. Then she dives into this whole scare tactic, saying Trump would demand loyalty pledges from judges. Folks, this is fantasy. No president, not even Trump, can legally demand such a thing, and he never did. But you know who has tried to manipulate the judiciary through political litmus tests? The Democrats. Every single time a conservative nominee is up, they drag them through the mud, looking for reasons to reject them not based on law, but on politics. Let me tell you what's really going on here. This speech isn't about the judiciary. It's not even about Trump. It's about the left trying to intimidate conservatives, trying to paint every constitutional stand we take as dangerous or un-American. They want to shut us up, control the courts, and push through policies that couldn't survive a real vote. But we're not backing down. We stand with the Constitution. We stand with a limited judiciary that applies the law, not rewrites it. We stand with a president who isn't afraid to call out corruption and bias. And most of all, we stand with you, the American people, the real check on power in this great republic. So if you're tired of the lies, the smear campaigns, and the endless political theater, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, because here at Right View Nation, we bring you the truth, raw, unfiltered, and proud to be American. God bless you, God bless President Trump, and God bless the United States of America. See you next time, Patriots.